What's up, y'all? It's AJ Simmons today with another great interview for you guys. Today, I got another veteran for you guys, somebody who's been in the game for a while. He's done way more than I have, so I can't wait to talk to him and kind of pick his brain a little bit. I'd like to introduce you guys to Mr. Mark Anderson. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great, AJ. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on your show. I think you do a lot of great things here and give some really good information.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. So you already know we got to jump into it. Let's
Yep.
hear a little bit about your background. Who is Mark?
Well, who is Mark? I'll give you the abbreviated Reader's Digest version and probably answer a couple of your three questions right off the bat.
All right.
I got into this industry when I was 17. And my first business was cleaning my dad's three bank branches. And the reason I got the job, he was tired of arguing with the janitor to get it done. So he put me in charge and said, you, I can control. I'm going to show you what I want, clean these three offices. So I started as a high school senior in this business, just doing that for him. And as I went into college, I joined a national franchise organization. I think they're still around, Environmental Control out here in the West. And I worked with them my entire college career. So I came up through the ranks, as a cleaner, a floor guy, a windowman, supervisor, trainer, and then eventually sales and management. So by the time I finished college, I thought, well, this is a pretty good gig. This cleaning industry is pretty good. And I was looking at other job offers and things and thought, so my current employer offered me a great job offer up in Seattle. So I took it, and that's how I remained in the industry. And I was with him for quite a while. And I thought, well, how hard can this be? Let's open my own business, right? This can't be tough. So I got my dad and another buddy, a friend of his that he had worked with, and they threw about $5,000 into the company and said, here you go, don't lose it. So we did our best. Fast forward 40 years later, I sold to Marsden Holding Company. We were 300 full-time people. I had about 6 or 7 strategic partners. We had a franchise system with 14 people, and that was all local here in the Northwest. We were not national. And that was a cleaning franchise system as well. We had a consulting company inside of that. We worked for customers as well as our competitors in our consulting company. And we were tipping the scales right at $10 million a year when I left. And I would say the last decade, we bounced between $8 and $10 million a year pretty regularly. So that's who Mark Anderson is in a real condensed version.
Yeah. So what that says to me is big dog. That's what I heard. So
hey, my friend, it's all relative,
absolutely, absolutely. So I have to ask you now, since you did mention the revenue by the time that you guys did fill, do you know? Let me see, how do I want to word this? Can you share about how much you sold it for, and then also like how do you come up with like a price to sell the cleaning company?
I can't go into detail just because Marsden still purchases companies, okay?
Right.
So I can't give you a specific figure. The formula that they used was an EBITDA, earnings before interest, depreciation, and amortization. And it's a formula where they look at your whole company, how it's operating, they back certain things out. It's quite the process. It took us 8.5 months to sell the company. And I did use a broker, a banking broker, commercial banking broker to do that specialized in the industry. Tullius Partners, they're one of the top people in the industry selling cleaning companies and other services. So the EBITDA range when I purchased, they take the numbers and it's 5 times your EBITDA number, okay? And then that's how they come up with the number. There's a ton of ways to estimate and value cleaning businesses. They're kind of hard to get a hold of because there's a lot of good faith, right? I mean, how long do you have the people? What are you making off of them? So we did sell. I will tell you, it was a multi-million-dollar figure, and it was under 7. Okay.
Right. I got you.
Is that fair? Because again, I just can't say because they still purchase companies, and I think they use the same formulas. So, and they're also a customer, so I got to be real careful what I say. So,
absolutely, I appreciate you sharing what you sold. I appreciate that. We can learn a lot just from that, honestly. So now, I had my questions that I sent to you ahead of time, right? I try to prepare you, but sometimes people say interesting things, and I got to kind of dive into that a little bit, and you just did that. So
You're
when it
running the interview, go for it.
all right. So when it comes to partners, what's your thoughts on that? First off, like, did you guys start with as a partnership from the beginning? Because if I heard you correctly, you came up from under your dad, I believe, and then
Yep. Yeah, my dad was a silent partner. He was in the finance industry, okay? So basically he ponied up the money. And there was another family friend that was not involved at that time that eventually became involved. So I basically started out as a sole proprietorship that went to a partnership. And then eventually after the second or third year, we morphed into, and remember, this is back in the late 70s, okay? We morphed into a C Corp. LLCs weren't around. So we went full C Corp for protection and just so we could do other things and buy other companies. It made things a lot easier at that time. So we were a C Corp. I always had partners. When we were a C Corp, of course, people were shareholders. And that got interesting. That's a story for another time and possibly an adult beverage. But we had a lot of trials. Partners are difficult. I had some great ones. I had some lousy ones along the way. My final partner that was with me 20 years was just wonderful. Didn't mean we didn't have our differences. And I was the majority stockholder at the end of that run. So I've done my things with partners as well as strategic partners, as well as actual joint venture groups. I had the privilege of working with Morrison Knudsen, and they've since been bought. But at that time, they were, oh gosh, they were probably in the Fortune 50, and they were a O&M, an operations and maintenance company like Johnson Controls, Floor Daniels, those people. And we worked with them for years and did we actually formed a second company with them and did some huge projects like General Electric in Schenectady, New York. We had about 200 people on that project. So we did a lot of things like that. So there's just any other questions on partners, or did that help you a bit? Or?
Well, I did have one more. It just kind of made me wonder now because I'm very, I guess, I'm not what you would call pro partner, I guess. So it's like, and I think that might be a weakness that I might have to get over with. So it's like, I'm wondering, like, is there a particular point that you think that someone would need to partner up with somebody and share some equity in order to get to that next level? Or is it a way that, do you really see somebody being able to do that with 100% owning the company to get to those millions, the multi-million?
Excellent question. It depends on you. Okay, one, it depends on your skill set. I wound up with a partner, which was my father. Now, he had nothing to do with the business. He just loaned the money originally, okay? And I did bring partners in that had skill sets I didn't have. One of my early on partners was a CPA and an accountant and very well versed in financial. And I needed that, so we worked a deal where he got a third of the company. Eventually, I purchased him. And then the other partner, I brought in expertise. He had worked for ServiceMaster, DuraClean, and had been way up in the ranks in the executive offices. We became good friends. He wanted out of the rat race. As a matter of fact, at one point, he was the international director of growth and services of R&D for Jani-King. And he wanted out of the rat race. So he came in. He was my partner the last 20 years. I always brought partners in relative to skill sets that I was weak in, and I knew we got along. And before anybody ever became a partner, I had worked with those folks probably a good 5 or 6 years in other capacities and knew what I was getting into. So in all fairness, these weren't somebody who ponied up money and I thought, gee, this is a great deal to do this. And I also brought some folks into ownership and profit sharing that I worked with, that I had again, I had always worked with these people, which I think is really key. I knew what I was getting into. So I knew their skill set. I knew where I lacked. And so I did that to support it. Can somebody run it on their own? Sure. You can run a 7-figure company on your own. Today, there is just a ton of places that you can go virtually or in locally where you can get the accounting. We've got more information in this industry now out there. You got to be careful what you listen to, but those things weren't available. So, you got accounting, insurance people, management people. There's a lot of good people out there that you can do. I would see, you can easily run a couple $1 million by yourself and have a great lifestyle business. But as you get bigger, you got two choices. You bring in a partner and you give them some sort of skin in the game, equity, or you pay somebody that's gone to gone to school, excuse me, or has worked for somebody else in a capacity you need to do what it is either A, you don't want to do or are not good at.
Gotcha. Perfect, perfect. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate that. Now, speaking of partners, I know that you partnered with Ed and Miss Sharon. Well, let me say their name, full name for the people who don't know. I'm sorry. You
Yeah.
partnered with Ed Selco and Miss Sharon, I believe, is Cowan.
Cowan.
Yep. And you guys have worked on something. Can you kind of share what exactly you guys partnered on with?
Well, we've done a bunch of different things together. Long history with Ed again. I've known Ed for 12 years. And funny thing is, when I had, well, probably longer than that, probably 15 now. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Right.
Ed was actually a consultant to my old business, CBM Systems, and I was actually a consultant to Ed. And that's how we got working together back in the day. And then Ed knew Sharon and she came in. So we've done a lot of different things. Ed's obviously got the janitorial growth solutions. Sharon has been successfully consulting in this industry, my gosh, the last, I think it's 18 years. So we all knew each other and got together and kind of formed this triad, and it's a very loosely held. It's just a real quick LLC with the three of us called the Janitorial Growth Alliance. And from that, we've done janitorial growth solutions, and we've played with a number of things. We've had the BrainBox Academy. We're retooling that as we speak now. We've learned a lot the last couple of years of rolling out training programs, educational, and most of all, giving people information that they can trust and build their business on. So it's been a bit of a learning curve. So we're retooling that as we speak right now. Probably another month or so, we'll come out with a new format on that. So we've learned a lot that way. And we do a lot of referral business together. We help each other with our businesses. So we have a lot of fun with it. So that's that kind of the backstory between the Janitorial Growth Alliance. And it really all centers around Ed. And Ed's been, gosh, I hate to say it, he's been around as long as dirt like I have, okay? I mean, I think we both started in the 70s. So mid 70s. So that's what we're up to. We have the groups on Facebook. We are moving away from Facebook. It's just not a great medium. I'm not going to get into any bad mouth in Facebook. It's just not what we want to do. And we've moved over to a network called the Mighty Networks. And have you ever heard of Mighty Networks?
Yeah, I have actually. I was considering moving there myself.
Do it.
Yeah.
They've got a way that you can monetize all of your classes, all different levels, all different people, all different, and it's your network. It's your Facebook on the web. You have full control. And I can't speak highly enough of it. We've had a lot of great success over there, and we're currently migrating all the way over to that. And there's 3 groups over there. There's Janitorial Subcontracting Network has moved there. Janitorial Growth Solutions is moving there. And the BrainBox Academy has been there. And again, that's BrainBox Academy we have messed with, and that's really been in a lot of alpha stage, testing a lot of stuff, seeing what works, seeing what people respond to. And I think we've found who we are and who we want to be for that particular group of people. But I would highly suggest get yourself over to Mighty Networks. You'll be happier.
Gotcha. Now, I was going to save this for later, but since we kind of went over some things that you kind of indulged in, can we talk about the Profit Growth Initiative? Is that completely separate than those mentioned?
Yeah, the Janitorial Growth Alliance, just so you know, is a combination. That LLC is actually 3 companies: Ed's company, Sharon's company, and mine. So that isn't something we've done collectively. We've done it as a group of LLCs. The Profit Growth Initiative, we started out 5 years ago. When I sold the company, I took about a year off, absolutely hated retirement, missed the industry. Kind of gets in your blood after 40 years. A lot of great people in this industry, hardworking people in this industry. I mean, it is not an easy industry to be successful in, despite its low barrier to entry. So we opened up the Profit Growth Initiative. Gosh, I hate to use the word consultancy or agency because everybody has jumped on that bandwagon. But we originally started out as advisors to the trades companies and building service contractors. I couldn't do those early on because of non-compete. And it's just to help people build their business. We're not as much into the skill set of how to do things. I know you get into a lot of forums, and there's people servicing that area that are doing just a fine job. And chemicals, we're not into the how to. We're into how to run your business and do it successfully. And we're bringing proven business practices that people ignore. Things like understanding customer lifetime value, message to market, how to tune your message up and differentiate. The things that you really need, and that I learned over 40 years, and I've used all these concepts, both for myself and to help other people with their business, they work. And we're also part of a larger consultancy firm called Top Line Business Solutions. And my particular coach has been doing this 40 years and created billions of dollars worth of revenue for all types of service businesses and non-service business. And I won't go any deeper. You know, if you want to go in deeper, we're redoing our website right now. We're doing a lot of retooling like everybody else. You know, we morph, and finding yourself is more of a journey than it is the destination and who you can serve best. But we really focus on marketing and building your companies. And those are the things, you know, most people in this business, even like yourself, are good operators. If you weren't good operators, if you couldn't get out, get the work done, train the people, do the QA, and keep customers, you wouldn't be in business. Where what we found is most people, and I'll use the old 80-20 rule, but in our particular industry, 80% of the people, and gosh, if I insult somebody, forgive me, have no idea how to market and grow a company. There's 20% that do, and those are the guys that are doing well and talking, and they've built a lifestyle for them. The other 80% have no idea how to put a marketing system together in a process fashion that they can repeat, and that goes for their SEO and everything. Right. So we don't do SEO, we don't post stuff. We help you understand all of that and build the messaging around it, and how to run your business, how to get more profit, where to look for the profit in the business, how to bring in ancillary services to drive profit, understanding the value of customer life, or understanding customer lifetime value. If you don't understand that principle, go Google it. You'll start to learn it. You need to understand that the longer you keep customers, the more money you make and the more profitable you are. We get into upsell, cross-sell, and bundling of your customers. All these basic principles. Watch Shark Tank. They talk about this stuff all the time. This is the profit with Marcus
Lemonis.
Yep. Yeah. They all use the same principles, but the interesting thing is you've got to go out and find these principles. Business schools don't teach them. They're teaching more of it, and they teach pieces of it. So what we've done is put all that together. We do have a very strong marketing side. I have one partner in this. He happens to share the last name, and which is my son, Daryl. He is extremely good at the marketing side of this business and understanding the digital world, campaigns, how to put things and structure the customer journey, identifying customer models. That's what we've been doing with the building service customers that we work with. I get into the financial side of helping people with their finances. And not necessarily when you think of finance, I'm talking about getting a solid P&L, getting your balance sheet in place, reviewing those things, understanding your ratios of your business. Like a lot of people here will talk, you know, daily sales. What's your sales, your DSO? Well, that's the amount, how fast your money comes in. So we look at the ratios that run businesses and keep them simple. You know, your percent of profit to revenue, and show people how to focus in on that, tune that up, tighten it up, and really make more money. I think one of the things that we really preach, it isn't about the amount of revenue. It's about the amount of profit you put in your pocket. Profit helps you with your lifestyle, your family, the goals you want to achieve. It allows you to invest back in your company. Most importantly, it allows you to invest back in your good people and to pay better wages in the market to get the good people. So profit is really where you want to focus on driving. Now you need to add new accounts. You need to get more accounts out of more dollars out of every account you have. But at the end of it, it's what falls down to the bottom line after we pay our labor, pay all our cost of goods sold, you know, our general, administrative, and sales expenses, that's the money we have left to work over with. So that's what, I know that's a little longer than maybe you like, but that's what the Profit Growth Initiative is about. So we're a bit of a different animal in that aspect.
No, that was perfect. I appreciate you going into detail for us like that, because sometimes it goes over people's head and they'll miss it if you don't break it down like that. So I appreciate you actually taking the time to do that. And so now that we went over that, I have to ask you this: like, after all of these years, after selling it and having success in this industry, why stay in the industry? Why not go invest in somewhere in California, some tech company, or something a little bit more sexier than this industry here? What is it about this industry?
Well, through our company, we do some of the sexy stuff. We do private lending. I've got my fingers in a lot of different pots for some of the fun stuff. I'm a very conservative investor, but we do some of those sorts of things. I sit on a couple of financial boards with gentlemen I do business with. So I get to have that fun. The industry, I love the industry. I don't know what to tell you after 40 years. The industry, I've been blessed, has been excellent to me. It provided money for 3 generations. It helped my dad with his retirement. It's certainly my wife and myself and my family. We've lived a lifestyle, and not ostentatious, and I'm not saying this. We've lived well, okay? Some not as good as others, better than some, better than most. But it has provided a vehicle for us to do a lot of the things that we wanted to do. And it's educated my children. They're often doing things. And the other thing is, I have got to help a ton of people throughout the years. I mean, I'll go back through my old management staff. One has his own business now, over 6 figures in this industry. Another one's a general manager for the aviation division of ABM. Another one has their own successful business. One's running a $4 million contract. And it isn't because I did anything, it's we got to work together and help them develop skill sets. And my goal was always, I wanted you to leave our company better, more skilled, and able to make more money than when you came in. My goal was always to make sure if you wanted to invest your time in yourself, we would give you the tools and the vehicles to develop your skill set. It was a great way to develop people. And I just like delivering the service. I'm a service guy. I've been in the service business, but I will say it's a rough industry.
Yeah, it is. And it's like, because I know Steve Jobs is famous for saying, do what you love. And I get it. But I think over time, too, especially if you're good at it, you learn to love it anyway after a while. It's like, me and my wife were just joking the other day, we miss being out there, getting in the buildings, just clean, it's peaceful.
Yeah. The side is, you notice I don't own a janitorial company anymore. Been there, done that, have the t-shirt, and that's a young person's game. You got to have the energy, as you know. Somebody doesn't show up, and if you don't have the systems in place, you're out cleaning the building. I get all that. I've did literally everything you can do in this business. Some of the things I didn't do is we got into service partners, with pest control and HVAC. But as far as this business goes, I probably clean more toilets than anybody, and have my hand and my head stuck in some horrible places, just to make a buck and make things work. I love the industry, and I hate to pay it forward. I really do want to give back. And if people were interested, I'm interested in helping. The thing is, the interesting thing, and I won't get on my soapbox here long, I promise you, okay, is everybody wants stuff for free anymore. And when I came up, I paid for every dime of information I got practically, one way or another, bringing people in as partners, giving them portions of guaranteeing them portions of the work. We didn't have the internet and everything, and people didn't have and I know you might get some blowback from this, but I don't mind giving out some free information, and I do it all the time, and I help people, but they think you should go through, and there's got to be a price. You got to have some skin in the game. So yeah, I charge, and not ashamed of it. And I charge a fair rate for whom I'm working with, okay? So, but I do love the industry, and I just love business. I'm also a SCORE mentor. Are you familiar with SCORE?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Everybody listening here, if you want free, great business advice, yes, I use the word free. SCORE, Senior Corps of Retired Executives. They're no longer retired anymore. It's an arm of the Small Business Administration. They have local chapters everywhere. I serve on it. You can get a mentor that will stay and work with you through your business plan, through your marketing plan, and it doesn't cost you a dime. It's all to help small businesses. And I've been doing that for 2 years. And so, see, I get to see a lot of different businesses. It's just not janitorial. I get to look at businesses that, therapy businesses. Some folks were in art manufacturing. I deal with all kinds of things. So I love business. And the other thing is, I did not like retirement. After 40 years of working, it just bored me. And I don't think the good Lord put us on here to, go sit on the beach and smoke cigars and drink mojitos in the last 15 years of our life. So
right. That's what I said too. I said, it's just great to hear from you, somebody that's been there and done it, way longer than, I'm talking about it. And it's like, because I'm saying, like you said, this industry has taken care of your family, for generations, and it's like, I'm preaching this stuff every day, but it's like, okay, AJ, it's just you saying this. Where's your proof? Well, you are, you know what I mean? You are.
It built my dad's retirement. I mean, he had a nice retirement. It literally put my kids through college, like I said, and it's provided for us. And most importantly, it's provided jobs. Gosh, I ran a number the other day, and I think over 40 years, when you look at the number of people we've employed, it's 10,000 or better. When you look at the, just growing a business. We had 300 full-time people when I left. And at one point, the company was 500 people. That's a whole nother story in and of itself. We narrowed it down to 300 and got profitable. Right. So it's been interesting, but it's like any business. It's a great industry if you do it correctly.
Absolutely. And by the way, my version of SCORE, because I love SCORE, and I always wonder like if I should mentor with them later. But for now, my version of that is my YouTube video. So I'm uploading hundreds of videos every year. That's my free stuff. So. And if you want more, you got to pay.
And that's a great way, yeah. And SCORE is the individual side. You're disseminating good information and encouraging people that are getting started. One of your questions, I think, was, well, who do you work with?
Yep.
Primarily, I do not work with startups or young companies. That just isn't my gift. Guys like Ed Selkow do a great job with that. He works with companies from 30 million to people that are out to get their first account. My primary target audience is, you've got to be approaching 1 million. You need to have been in business 3 to 5 years. You have to have a basic understanding of the industry. You've got to run a fairly decent operation that needs improvement. And that's what I come in and tune up, teach you how to both grow and build the business. And growing the business and building the business, the platform that business is going to run on, are two separate things. We get into planning and how to plan and do it correctly. A lot of businesses don't plan, and that's a big mistake. Ask me how I know. Through my career, I've run it with plans and without plans, and I'll guarantee you running it with plans is a heck of a lot better in some measures.
Absolutely.
And I've got customers, honestly, right now from 750,000 a year to 50 million.
Right.
But my sweet spot, I love the guys between 750 and 2 to 3 million that are just trying to level up, leverage up that next little jump. And that's where we come in and look at your systems. And if we don't have the information, we pretty much know how to direct you to that information. And we look at your processes and your systems and how to build things. So the companies can, I won't say run themselves. I hate salesy stuff, even though I sold for 40 years. I don't like the overstatement of what things do, but if you have the right systems in place, you can make average people extraordinary people by giving them the right systems and having good measures in place. And that's our niche in the building service industry.
Absolutely. And I think that's why I asked that question. I was trying to find it in my notes, but I couldn't find it. I think that's why I asked you if you work with beginners or not, because that's kind of what my specialty. And it's like I got some people now in my group where they kind of outgrow. I feel like they might be outgrowing me here soon. That they're approaching those bigger numbers, and it's like, okay, I need somebody to funnel these guys to now, because they're asking for it, and they're looking for it. And it's like, again, I don't lie. I keep it 100. So I'm not going to tell you to do something I've never done before. So just good to know. But anyway, I wanted to also speak on this while we were talking about this industry taking care of your family and everything. I'm known for saying that this is a recession-proof industry, and the reason why I said it is because number one, I read it somewhere in blogs and stuff, but
Right.
also, right, but also the real reason why I said it too is because I was actually in business during the '08, '09 little recession that we had, and for the most part, I mean, it didn't really hit me too hard. So I wanted to hear your take on it. I mean, you've been around longer than I have in the industry. So what's your take as far as this not being a recession-proof industry?
Re- I would say it's recession resistant. I would take it that way. And I'll tell you, I've been through 9 recessions, 4 of them major now that we've got COVID. And we always had customers, but customers always dialed back the level of service. You just mentioned '08 and '09. We did not lose one customer, but I lost $1.1 million of revenue with people cutting back. So it is recession resistant. In other words, people still need our services. I think that's where the recession proof comes in. It isn't just something they drop unless they absolutely have to. They might go from 5 days to 3 days, 3 days to 2 days. They might pick up the scope of work and say, we're not going to clean these areas anymore. They'll do some scope change to make things work, but you're still around. And in every recession that I've been through, and I looked it up one time, what the fourth one is this current one, but I've been through, but not like when I had the company. I've helped other people steer through the issues. They have to have cleaning. I mean, sanitation is vital. And I think that's another thing I always liked about the service. The other thing I love about this service, recurring revenue.
Yes.
They pay every month. I don't care if it's once a week or every, 24/7, 365, you get a check every month. So a lot of industries, the construction industry, I've worked with those guys, they're all constantly going out and finding new houses to build, new houses to flip. A couple of plumbing companies I've worked with, a very successful one out here in the Northwest. You know what they do? They do commercial work. You know why? It's recurring. They don't do any residential plumbing. Guy's an absolute genius that runs this thing. He's taken his company from 0 to, I think he's at $8 million now in 7 years. But he had the chops. He had worked for some of the major franchises prior to opening his own. And he saw what the market wasn't taken care of and jumped in, and just a brilliant guy with what he does. I worked with his team on some finance educational projects and how to tighten things up for about a year. A great guy. So, but again, it's that recurring revenue and just something about lifetime value. I've talked about customer lifetime value. I can make the point very simply. If you tell me you hold your customers 2 years and lose them, and let's just say it's $1,000 a month customer to make the math easy, okay? So I keep them 2 years. So that's $12,000 a year times 2 years is $24,000. And then for whatever reason, they go away, right? But if I look through my list of customers and who I have, I look at what the average is, I keep all these customers. And let's just say we'll do the company average. We won't get into market niches or certain jobs. Let's just say that's what I'm keeping my recurring customers at. What happens if you keep that customer one more year? Instead of 2 years of keeping them, you keep them 3. What have you done? You've grown your business another $12,000 a year by doing nothing more than keeping the customer on. That's $12,000 the next year you don't have to replace. What if you keep them another year? Now it's $24,000. So you have created a foundation and you put more revenue on top of that foundation rather than turning it. And to that point, probably one of the things I'm most proud of myself and my team, and I did not build the company by myself. If I had not had the people that I had working hard and doing what they do well, I would have never done what I did. I'm a firm believer, you don't do this stuff by yourself, particularly in this industry. And I had a great team of everybody's a great team, but I had about 20 people that helped me run that business in different capacities that were just marvelous at what they did. And I stayed out of their way. But back to the lifetime value. So that's $24,000 I didn't have to replace. If I have a gross operating margin, that's money after I pay all my expenses to get the building cleaned, okay? So that's where I pay for my office, my general administrative and sales expenses. If I run the business and everybody says you should be making 40, and I tell you what, I hate to talk numbers on social media because people don't have a real clue of what they're talking about. Again, 20% do. There's some sharp guys. And I'm not going to mention names. They know who they are. Don't talk smack. You read it, perk up, and you look and you go, these men and women know their business. But 40% on $1,000 is $400 a month. Okay, that's money that if I continue and keep that account just 2 more years, I have no increase to my overhead. You with me? I don't have to hire another supervisor, put another truck out, nothing. So that's another 4,800 times 2 or $9,600 of gross operating margin I've put into my company without having the extra expense, operating expense and sales expense of bringing on and acquiring a new client. So I won't go too much further into that, but that's why you have to and you must understand customer lifetime value, CTLV.
Yes, that's a good point. That's a good point, Mark. And speaking of what you have to understand, I want to ask you this because you said you had a team that you couldn't have done without them. You couldn't have done it without them, pretty much. What would you say was the hardest thing that you had to do when building your cleaning business? Like, if you could just pick one, I know it's a ton of them, but if you could just pick one thing, like, what do you think was the hardest challenge for you building your business?
You know, probably 2, but the hardest challenge is keeping the competitors and the wolves away from the doors of my customers. And always being competitive and keeping them longer and doing things that I created more value than anybody else had to offer. And I did that with the team of people. And the other side is constantly training people. Training never ended in our company. And I'm not holding us out as the mark. All good companies train. They train their people and they make them effective and they support them. And, you know, providing all that support, and the bigger you get, the more problems you have. My partner and I used to sit around and laugh. And, you know, at one point we were doing 3,000 hours a night. Okay. And he'd look at me and go, you know, something's broken and something hasn't gone very well. We just don't know what it is yet. And ask anybody. And if you run more than 12 people or 12 accounts, you're going to have that feeling at times. Something's going wrong. It's just keep it from not going so bad that you wind up on their radar and they want to get rid of you. So right. I would say keeping the problems. And let me take that question one more note further. Why did we get out? We had both done this 40 years. You get really tired of pulling a train that big, even when you have help. And you think of all the liability, accidents, sexual harassment issues, I can go on. The risk starts getting bigger and bigger the bigger you get. So you either get so big that you've got people handling that. And of course, we were getting older. I sold the business at 58 and Jim was 4 years in front of me. And we just got to the point, we didn't want to deal with the regulations. We were tired of dealing with everything and making it work. And there's a lot of moving pieces. And if you have one account, you still have the same moving pieces. You don't want an accident on that account where you get an insurance claim that breaks your company, right? If you're not cleaning it. So that at the end, we just got tired of pulling the train. And a lot of guys, you know, they hire professional managers and stuff. And we, believe it or not, we talked about 2008. We were in the midst of trying to sell our business the first time. And all the deals we had set up went sideways and south. People quit acquiring and buying building service companies. So we had to get back on the bike and pedal another 4 years until we finally sold in 12.
Gotcha. Now you spoke on regulations, and I remember earlier you said that you guys got into franchising. Mm-hmm. And so I was considering that at one point, but then I saw the regulations that came with franchises, so I decided maybe I should get into licensing instead. Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, we had several different models. The reason we went master franchise and franchising, we had 3 masters, and then they had very similar to the Jana King model or a couple of the. They're not bad models depending on what you want to do. And everybody that got hired into that, they were called. I guess I got to stop and think of what they were called. They did the work themselves mostly. Okay. The franchise business, we had masters that owned the territories, and then they had people working for them. and the name, what we called those folks is just escaping me right now.
Okay.
But they were actually the franchisees that did the work. It's extremely difficult. We're in the state of Washington. We're regulated by the SEC. It's a nightmare.
Right.
It cost us 15 grand a year just to get the accounting done to comply. So there's compliance states, there's non-compliant states. I would look at the licensing. You've got to be careful with that. You need a good attorney to make sure you got your self covered, because there's a fine line between licensing and franchising and what you promise. And if you cross it, then you're operating outside of the boundaries of the law. So it gets, but there's states that just allow you to do business licensing, or business opportunities is another word, okay?
Okay.
And that's where you may provide the background and the knowledge for a fee, and they're pretty much their own independent operator. So there's a lot of ways to do that. Subcontracting is under, at least out here in the West, is under extreme pressure. You know, California now, you can't do gig work or subcontracting. They've got laws against it. I know, I won't say what company, they lost a $2 million lawsuit in California because they reclassified their subcontractors as employees. Know a couple in Washington that have gotten into that mess. So it's real dicey. So, you know, go into that carefully if you're going to do that. But it can be done and done. But again, you really need legal counsel to get through those waters. And it depends on what state you're operating in.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't do it again.
I'm with you on that. So let me ask you this. I know when I spoke to Ed, he told me that you had the Microsoft account. Yep. And as well as some other large accounts. So can you kind of share a few tips with us on how to get larger accounts like those?
Tips, okay. I've done this before in a couple of videos, and everybody hates my tips because basically there is no hack to getting a large account unless some of your in-laws or bloodline are running it, okay? Right. They're gonna give you a shot. You have to do the work. I'll address Microsoft in a second and the larger one. But we have Microsoft, Tektronix. I mean, we're talking about all these were $1 million a year facilities. Fujitsu, Fairchild Camera and Instrument. We did Samsung. I said Fujitsu. I'm trying to think of the other guys. They had 3 or 4. We did a lot of work in Oregon. We were in the Silicon Forest down there. That's another story. We did Komatsu. So we were highly specialized in doing clean rooms, which is a specialty area, which used to be high margin, which is now a lot lower margin. We also did food plant sanitation. But getting into this, it's a very, I try to explain this to everybody, and I look back at I've looked back at my own business. And you asked one question, could anybody do what I did today? It's a different environment. When I started my business, we didn't have national competition. We didn't have big franchise systems. We had people like Xerox, you know, they hired locally and regionally. And a lot of that has changed. So it gets more difficult, but it can be done. Back to how do you get the big accounts? You start by getting the small accounts. Now, I know this is stupid. There's no hack to this. My first account was once a week. It was a 400 square foot bicycle shop. I got paid $10 a week to do it, okay? And then I got the little office next door, the finance place. And then I got one over there. And then pretty soon you just keep building. And I think the trick is how you present your company. So if I don't have a building that's 50,000 square feet, okay, but I do 100,000 square foot of work for other people, I just tell them I'm already doing 100,000 square foot. I've got these companies, and doing 100,000 square foot in different locations, sir or ma'am, has certainly got to be more difficult than just cleaning your building. And you stay in your, people like yours, you stay in your corral. If all you do is clean buildings, clean them and clean them well. Be cost competitive and provide more service. And that's easy for the small entrepreneur to do. You can outserve an ABM, a Service Master, any of those guys. If you're running your own shop, the biggest advantage you have is you. Use you. The owner's taking care of stuff. You're not going to get that in too many places. And what I did is I just kept bouncing around, grabbed a few medical clinics, because you'd ask this question, you sent them. And pretty soon I had about 40,000 square foot of 10,000 medical clinics. I got my first big facility of 60,000 square foot next to the hospital. From there, I got the next one, which was 100,000 square foot. And when I had enough of those, my first semiconductor plant, I used those references to get in. And we knew nothing about semiconductors. We studied the industry. It took us a month to develop this bid, but it was our first $30,000 a month account back in the 80s. And the thing grew to be, I think it was 50 or 60,000 in 1980 dollars a month. So you have to build, and you have to get a reputation, and you have to have references. And one thing Ed says, and I love it, and it's a bit of a raving fan sort of approach from Ron Zemke, but spoil your customers rotten, particularly the ones that are good to you and you like and are taking care of you, because they're going to be the door to your next customer, the next jump. And it's like leapfrog. Like I said, if you know somebody and they hand you an account, that's great. If I were to go back into it, I could get large accounts because I've got the chops, I've got the proof, I can talk the game, I understand what's going on. But if you work for another company and you come out of another company after, we'll just make this up, 10 years with ABM, you probably you've got credibility in the industry. You with me? You may not have the accounts, but you know how to do it. Yep. It's a smaller entry to barrier than I have nothing. Get your accounts, do them well, and if you're doing 5,000, 10,000 square feet, start looking for the 20 to 40,000 square foot. Start, I love this word, scaling up as you're calling on people, and have a plan to scale up. Know who your clients are, know who likes you, know why they like you, and be different than everybody else. So does that help, AJ?
Oh, that's perfect. And it's right along with what I preach when people ask me that question, because there's really no secret sauce to it. You know, the way you get one account is how you get another account. It's just, you got to earn it. Now you got to work your way into that point. But, and also one more thing about the big accounts too. I want to ask you this. So is there a particular point, like at what point, let me see, how did I word this in my notes? Okay. So at what point should someone try to tackle those type of accounts? Like, is it ever too early? Because sometimes I get people who come at me brand new, they might have one little small $200 a month contract, and then they get approached with this huge, 100,000 square foot opportunity, and they're so nervous, and it's like, should I coach them through it, or should they not even deal with it because it's not ready yet? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, let me ask you some questions, okay? So I've got we'll make them a little bigger. I got $1,000 a month account.
Okay.
And I've got $100,000 I've got 100,000 square foot opportunity.
Okay.
If I'm buying that company, if I'm the purchaser, how are they going to make payroll? Sometimes you have to carry payroll for 45 days. If that $100,000 account is $10,000, I'm going to have to carry at least $6,000 worth of payroll. Do they have $6,000 in the bank doing $1,000 a month account? See, there's other things that come into this. They may ask them, but they're going to wind up getting disqualified. You have to have money behind you to grow those things. When we walked into Microsoft, it cost us payroll the first couple months was, $90,000. People don't pay you up front for our service. It's usually 30 days in the rears. We got pretty good at daily sales turns, and I have my money in 15 days from most customers. We had a whole way to billing, and it's no trick. We just pre-billed. I billed the 15th of the month of the service I was in for the next month. Most people pay net 30. Guess what? The bill gets in their cycle early, and bingo, I got my money by the 15th of the next month on most of them. So is it ever too early? If you've got the money and the wherewithal, where are they going to get another 10 people? Where are they going to get the money for payroll? How are they going to start this up? Do they know what they're doing? The buyers look at this. I just ran a job about 2 or 3 years ago from a past client, and it was a $2 million job, and I ran the entire purchasing for that job for him as one of our services. And we didn't have anybody in there that couldn't front payroll. You had to go through a whole checklist of things. We had all the big players in there because they had, if we were to make a change on that particular facility, they had the money to make that change happen. They had the personnel to make that happen. A one-horse shop can't run 100,000 square foot. It's
absolutely.
So these are the questions your buyers are asking. They may invite you and like you. And I went through all of this. I chased Weyerhaeuser. Your questions were kind of interesting because it got me thinking about a lot of stuff. Everybody's heard of Weyerhaeuser. They had a 750,000 square foot account right up the road from me. And I chased this guy forever. And I was probably doing 50,000 square foot buildings, maybe 100, okay? And I can remember him taking me out to lunch one time. We sat down and he goes, why do you think you can handle this? And he starts asking me all these financial questions and ratios and how I run this and how I make that happen and how many supervisors per square foot. I mean, he just runs down the litany. The guys, most of these guys in facilities are trained engineers, okay? So they know numbers backwards and forwards and how stuff. And when I left the table, he said, come back and talk to me when you understand what I need. And most people going after that stuff, unless you got 10 years somewhere else and you have run big jobs. You know, when Ed built his business, he had worked for major companies. I mean, he got it, he understood it. But the rest of us kind of learn as we go. So, and eventually, I never did get any of his work, but I did get the opportunity to bid a lot of the stuff for him. But I can remember the guy sitting me down and very polite, even bought me lunch and said, come back when you understand the business. You understand my business and how these things have to operate. He said, why would you think, for the love of God, I'm going to give you the keys to 750,000 square foot where the warehousers work, and you need a team of 50 to 60 people, and you've only got 30 on your staff now, and you're going to double your company. Man, I lost all the wind in my sails, let me tell you. there was no answer to that. Check, please.
So the answer is yes, if you can, but typically no, because typically, you know, you won't be able to do it at that level.
They don't have the personnel, the training, the financial strength to run the job. That's why you keep scaling, you keep pushing that. If I got a 10,000 square foot, start hunting 30, because there's not that big a gap. You see, you can sell past that gap.
Yep.
When I get 50, I start getting 100. And that's all we did. We just kept scaling and looking at our market and saying, who do we want? Who's our ideal customer? Let's go after them. And big accounts, I don't think people understand this, what they call the time to sale or the sales cycle time are long.
Yeah.
There's some accounts that we called on for 5 years before we won them and bid them 2 or 3 times. People just don't, the bigger they are, the more risk it is in turning the keys over to you, because it could mean a facility manager or a facility vice president's job if they give it to the wrong company. You with me?
Yep.
Come in there and screw that up, vice president could lose his job. So you can do it. I wouldn't discourage you not to do it, but you better know what you're doing. Is that a fair answer?
Perfect. No, perfect.
Okay. I told you, what you see is what you get with me, okay?
Absolutely. Listen, I think that's why I click with you guys so well.
Yep. You don't like the answer? Well, go shop it somewhere else, okay?
Absolutely. So I have to ask you this, because I ask every single person that comes on here this question, and it's, what would you say to the person on the sideline watching this video, thinking about starting a cleaning company? They think they want to do it, but they're just scared to make that jump. What could you say to that person?
To start the company?
Yep, just to start.
Find somebody like you. If you don't, okay, let me caveat this. If you don't know the business, you know, if I've worked for ServiceMaster or ABM and I'm starting my company, I'm coming in with a knowledge base of how to get this done and how it operates, okay? If I'm starting from zero, I need to tie in with somebody like you that's going to shepherd me along the path, give me the right things to do, tell me the right things to say, and what I'm really up against. Because what people don't understand, this isn't about cleaning a building, it's about running a business. And I don't want to belittle the trade, but let's take a small account. Anybody can go in and clean it, talk to the customer, and make them happy. But when you get the next account and the next account and you start hiring employees, it is a business. And most people that start this, it's a low barrier to entry, okay? I mean, how much does it cost to open a janitorial company if you don't buy a franchise?
Right.
Vacuums, it's low barrier to entry. Right. Now you gotta know how to sell, right? If you're going to get an account, unless your Uncle Bob's going to give it to you. So now I've got to know, I've got to have selling skills. I've got to have marketing skills. I've got to get in and talk to people. That's what I understand what you're getting into. Now, if you just want an account to pay the bills, you're good. If you want to build a business that provides for your lifestyle, whatever that is, wherever you set that level, then you've got to understand that you've got accountants, you've got liabilities, you need insurances, you've got to train people, unless you're going to do it all yourself, different deal. Other than that, understand it's a business and it requires more than just cleaning the building. And I'm not trying to discourage anybody. Understand what you're getting into. And my last thing is have a plan. I don't care if it's on the back of a cocktail napkin, okay? I'm going to borrow this much money. I'm going to do this much on selling. Here's the customers. Here's where my first account's coming from. And write something out so you have a process to follow that you can measure. Just don't go, well, I hope I'm going to get an account. If somebody gives you an account, then like I love Ed saying, spoil them rotten. Take care of them. I don't care what it costs, because they're the gateway to your next account. It's a great business, and you can do a lot of things with this business. You know, you can build large companies. And I did all this first generation. I didn't inherit anything. I started with nothing. So I feel very blessed, and a lot of hard work. But I started with nothing. I didn't inherit my dad's company or my grandfather's company. I wasn't second, third, or fourth generation. And a lot of these guys are that big when they get that big. You just have to be. A couple of them have done it, I know, in second generation that are $500 million, but they're the exception to the rule. Get in it and start it. But that's what you be a realist and understand there's more to it. Have your books done by a professional. Don't go out and try to learn QuickBooks. Pay somebody something. You know, get enough business. If you can't, then you have to do it yourself. But I religiously preach your best friends are have somebody that can provide you legal counsel at a rate you can afford if you need them, okay? Because we can get into legal trouble. Have a good insurance company that can help you understand the risks you're taking and the liabilities you're assuming by cleaning someone else's building, and make sure you have the coverage for that. And for the love of God, have an accountant. I don't care if it's Uncle Bob or Aunt Susie or somebody. Have your books done professionally once a year to make sure you stay out of tax trouble. And someone that can help you say, you know, you're not making any money. You need to look at this thing differently. Because we're not all accountants, attorneys, and insurance professionals. I had a whole bevy of those people. I didn't do all that stuff. Nobody does. And if you just do it even on a small basis, you know, and get some help. Now that's assuming you have more than one account. Again, I got to caveat everything because everybody's different. If I'm just cleaning one account to pay a few bills, you don't need all that stuff. You're probably going to be a sole proprietorship and just pass it through as income and be taxed on it that way. But if you're planning on having a business of any size, you need to look at those things. And there's guys like, you know, you do a good job of helping people steer through, you know, miss the rocks on the initial launch when they're going down a river. And that's what they need. They have to understand it isn't just cleaning the building, it's a business.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Mark. Now I got to ask you this one last question before we get to that final question. And this question is, what's the legacy, man? So what's the legacy play? Like, what is this all for? What do you want your legacy to be when it's all said and done?
What do I want my legacy to be? You want the personal answer or the scriptural answer?
I get the feeling I'm going to get the one you want to say right now, either way, right?
I think if I put it in terms, and everybody looks back, I always said this, anybody that had an experience with CBM systems and we weren't perfect. I mean, we screwed up. We had all the problems everybody else has. I mean, it always sounds great when you're telling the tale, you know, 10 years later, okay? Dang it, no, I just went blank on the message. What did you ask me?
It's fine.
Out of the station, dude, I wasn't there.
The legacy thing, that's all.
Legacy, yeah. Everybody that walked away, I wanted them to feel. I always said, if you can walk away and say, I was treated fairly, I got a respectable wage, maybe not the most, but I was treated fairly. My opinion was considered. I didn't necessarily like the guy, but he was fair. He was reasonable, even though I didn't like the decision. And that I helped people, you know, at the end of the day, whether you were cleaning the building, I helped them do something more with their lives, whether it was earning part-time money, having a job they couldn't get anywhere else. But when they left the company, they were better than the day they walked in the door. And all my customers, I hope they always felt the same way. We didn't cheat them. We were always fair. We always gave more value than they paid for. And they always thought that there was a greater value than whatever they were paying a month. And we were fair and honest, and we could be trusted. I think those are the legacies I want to leave, because regardless of how poorly or well I did it, I always, in my mind, I was always serving someone greater than myself. And without going any further than that, we'll leave it there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mark, it was excellent. I appreciate you. I truly do, for coming up here. You shared a lot of gems with us today. I'm sure my media guys are going to chop it up and it'll be all over social media. So
Gotta have the editors.
Absolutely. And so before we go, I have to say, anybody watching this, if this inspired you, if it helped you in any type of way, you want to learn more and you want to get started, check out cleanbiznetwork.com. And if you already started and you're ready to scale, how can they follow your journey, Mark? And how also can they learn more about the Profit Growth Initiative?
Okay, our journey is in limbo right now because we're rebuilding our website and retooling our message. So
All right.
I will have that sooner than later. We're just about halfway through. The Profit Growth Initiative, if you want to find us, again, this is not a sales pitch. If you want to find us, you can find us on Facebook. Our site will be up soon. We don't have a lot of followers. We're just not a huge company. We're different. We get highly involved with our customers and help them with where they want to go. And we're also building some programs to, I got a new marketing program coming out. Everybody will want to have a look at. And as I did not build it, it was built through an association I'm with, and it's absolutely killer and it's reasonable. So the Profit Growth Initiative, you can join us on Facebook. And again, I wish the website was up to give you some more. But again, we are tooled for the people that are well down the road and looking to scale and leverage up. So that is our market niche. You know, if you're approaching 1 million or you're over that, and you say, hey, I want some good professional advice, I always do discovery calls with folks that are interested. You know, I'll do an hour on the phone with you. We'll talk about your business. I'll give you some ways to improve it. I haven't run across a business yet, honestly, if they're in that level, that if I spend an hour with them, I can probably find a way for you to make 20 grand out of your business.
Absolutely.
I didn't say get you 20 grand. I said help you find a way to generate 20 grand.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it so much, man, for you coming on. It was a pleasure and an honor to meet with you actually today, because I didn't know you before today, but now I got a chance to know you, and I'm honored. So I appreciate